Two over 60s called Dave and Doug claim all it takes to make a corn circle are two old planks, a couple of lengths of rope and some imagination. With a stout pair of boots and some gusto, the crop can be laid down in no time at all. Doug Bauer and Dave Chorley say over 13 years they've made more than 100 circles that have fooled scientists the world over.
We wanted to make the UFO Society think that a UFO had landed. And after a few years, they didn't know whether to believe it or not. And as the years rolled by, we started doing certain patterns. And as you see today, we got quite complicated in them.
But when the experts inspected Doug and Dave's circle, they weren't impressed at all.
It's an obvious, I mean, it's absolutely obvious. This here, you see, it's not consistent at all with a genuine phenomenon.
I just don't believe them, no.
Has to get to the actual formation very quickly in the morning on the first day and examine it, in the same sense that if the police go to a crime scene, they want to do a critical physical examination of that scene very, very quickly to determine what happened there. Obviously, if I go to a crop circle on the second day and there's been 200 people there walking all over the evidence, then it's kind of messed up and we have to just leave that as a maybe, possible, who knows where for sure that came from. So yeah, as a field investigator, I have to get to these events very quickly on the ground, physically examine the effects which are left. And if that's been made by people, for instance, you know, a man with a plank of wood on his foot, crunch, 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 flattening out crop, it leaves a very particular pattern of damage in the plants, and this can be physically observed and measured against crop circles that have been physically produced for TV commercials, movies, this kind of thing. So we have a kind of a benchmark, a base understanding of the physical mechanics of humans creating a crop circle, so we can take that experience over to any given crop circle that is reported in the summertime and just observe the physical effect. It becomes really interesting when we don't see this crunch, crunch, crunch breaking of the plants.
What is your best idea on how the others are made, the ones that are not man-made?
All I could really say for sure, to my own satisfaction after 17 years of physical investigation on the ground, is that the process which is employed by people to physically create crop circles is heavy and mechanical, and the effect on the ground is obvious. If we take circles that appear to be from some other kind of source, it appears to be something non-physical, energetic, which is physically laying down those plants. If, for instance, if we look at formations in the what we call oilseed rape, I think you call it canola, the yellow flowering plants, very thick, brittle plants, kind of like celery. It's physically impossible for a man to stamp about on these plants without doing severe damage to those plants, you know, scraping the stems, ripping the flowers off of their plank of wood, crushing the stems, makes one horrible mess in the field. So when we see formations in oilseed rape that have no physical crushing, crunching, scraping or breaking, one has to conclude that something else happened there, some kind of apparent energetic process that caused those stems to bend neatly to the ground and arrange themselves in a very particular order for some particular reason. The reasoning is unknown at this time.
I've come to be affronted by anything which can be symbolised by initials. So I think CIA, MI5, ET, UFO is offensive. I mean, it produces a knee-jerk reaction. So I'm not interested in ETs or UFOs. I think we're talking about other civilizations who are not based on planet Earth. I think we are being taught perhaps one lesson, which is that there exist tangibly other prodigious consciousnesses and intelligences, and that now they seem to be interested tangibly, materially, in making contact with us.
In those days, it was evolving very, very fast. It seemed to be accelerating at an extraordinary rate.
Okay. Yeah.
You could just move your foot a minute. And as you can see, this is a complete straight one.
Yes.
That's the angle of the crop. Right. This is the type of bends that was in this. This is like a cabbage plant, but as you can see, it's a 90-degree bend. And if you can imagine, that was in the ground, and there's just enough room for the leaves and everything else to be on the ground.
If you were to graphically present it as a grid, you more or less get that. A hexagonal grid or triangular grid, standard triangular grid, and here are your three edge alignments, one going up there, one going down there, one going down there. So there's a line just clipping through circles, and I call those tangents, which is what they're doing. It's one line, it's tangenting three circles. I was really struck immediately by the precision of the thing, and as far as I was concerned, it helped to explain the beauty of it, just as a graphic.
People are fairly limited in their way of thinking. They want to have the answer, it's alien or it's human. And I think it's something in between. I don't think it's aliens. I don't think it's coming from outer space. But on the other hand, there is a phenomenon. It's not just one big hoax. Something extraordinary is going on here.
And we were just about to leave, you see. I was leaving.
We saw it, yeah.
I was picking up my gear, put on my shoulder, and I turned and I saw this object come into view. If it had been actually 5 seconds afterwards, we would have missed this, because we would have carried on up the hill. Now I actually turned round and saw it. I mean, it came into view, it turned, then it went down into the corn, and it moved through the corn, scampering through that corn.
Moving between two formations, crop formations that are in the field, moving from this one to this one.
It knew what it was doing, it knew where it was going.
Intelligently
controlled.
Dropping down into a tractor tire mark as if it's looking at the tractor tire mark. Nothing random about it. There's no movement in the prevailing wind, moving as you would in the direction of the wind if this was a balloon or something similar.
You see, the object came down and it stopped for a long time. So I thought I'd pan away to the rings to give you the distance from where the object was and the rings were. Pan back and give you an actual relation of the two distances. So, through all this time it was glinting, flashing all the time. Then it took off.
As a school maths teacher, what pulls me into it is that nobody's ever seen these designs before or thought of them. They're not just brought out of old books, you know. Right. It's not just sacred geometry from old temples. It really isn't.
With strange magnetic particles. One of the most amazing crop designs is not a circle, but a rectangle that seems to be a direct response to a message sent out into space in 1974. The message was a radio signal depicting our planet's location in our solar system and Earth's people, in hopes that it might be received and interpreted by an extraterrestrial intelligence. 27 years later, in 2001, this crop design appeared in England, along with what could be a self-portrait of the sender. This message matches the format of the NASA signal and describes a different solar system from ours, a picture of the sender, non-human DNA, and a microwave antenna they apparently used to communicate, rather than the radio antenna that we used. The antenna symbol had appeared a year earlier in exactly the same field, right next to a working radio wave antenna, like the one NASA used to send out the original signal. NASA continues to officially deny extraterrestrial contact of any kind.
What Levengood says is going on is that the moisture, remember the plant stem is hollow, and the nutrients, the moisture which nourishes the plant, goes up through this stem. Plasmas, a fact about plasmas is that they emit microwaves in bursts, pulses. His idea is that the microwaves from these pulses are connecting with the moisture inside the plant stem, just like they would in your microwave oven, heating the plant up, which softens it and allows it to fall. The moisture inside turns to steam, and as it does so, it has to escape. Well, if the plants are young and pliable, the outer fibers are pliable, the steam escapes by stretching the nodes. That's how you get the elongated nodes. If the energy is extremely intense, and or if the crop is old and the fibers are tough, then it can't get out by stretching it because the fibers won't stretch, or it's just too much energy. Then it blows a hole right out at the node.
Okay, that's called the blown node.
Yeah, and those are our exploded nodes.
And strangely enough, as this ball of light appears, the whole subjective, creepy, bizarre feelings all go, and I'm just in a normal, everyday situation, but there's this ball of light there.
No one individual possesses the answer, although we're all progressing with